Okay, awesome. All right, well, hello everyone. Welcome to Utah's Every Kid Outdoors Beyond the Classroom webinar series, our first one. Today's episode is Birds, Binoculars, and Beyond, boosting student engagement and literacy through cross-curricular outdoor learning. I'm grateful to have two knowledgeable and amazing guests here with us today. The first is Dr. Joey Kozlowski, a second grade teacher at the Edith Bowen Lab School at Utah State University and a finalist for Teacher of the Year. And in addition, we're joined by Dr. Eric Newell, the Director of Experiential Learning at Edith Bowen Lab School. Thank you for joining me and sharing your insights. I'm so glad you're here. I've been looking forward to this, so hooray, we're finally here. So Joey's managed something truly remarkable. He's bridged the gap between state standards and the natural world. What started as a project funded by the Utah Children's Outdoor Recreation Education Grant, or UCORE grant, to bring binoculars and birding into his second grade classroom became a deeply impactful cross-curricular year-long experience that instilled a love of learning in Joey's students. The results speak for themselves. In a year when many are worried about learning loss, particularly in reading and math, Joey's students achieved 100% proficiency in math and reading. Truly remarkable results, particularly at a Title I school. So today we're going to walk through the timeline of Joey's journey from writing that first grant to managing the risks of an outdoor classroom and outdoor instruction, and finally seeing how birding has transformed his students into scientists and his classroom into a community. In addition, we'll talk with Eric about the administration's role in empowering teachers to incorporate outdoor learning into their instruction. So thank you again so much for being here today. So would you please start by telling us about your school, about the Edith Bowen Lab School?
Yeah, we are a public charter school, so we follow all the same curriculum requirements, testing requirements, funding requirements as any other public school in the state of Utah. We've been in partnership with the College of Education here on the USU campus since 1957. And it existed as the Whittier School before that for several decades here in Cache Valley. And we're founded on a constructivist philosophy. Edith Bowen and Emma Eccles both studied under John Dewey at Columbia University. And constructivism, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the gist of that is we believe that kids learn, the concept of that is kids learn by constructing meaning from experiences, and adults too as well. So we are kind of have three missions here at Edith Bowen. Part of it is to have research-based instructional strategies. The second tier of that is to help prepare pre-service teachers. So we have every teacher here at Edith Bowen has a student teacher every semester, as well as other practicum students. And then we are also part of conducting research, educational research. So there are probably 5 or 6 studies going on here at Edith Bowen right now. I would say various, different things, different professors that have interests in things that we're studying. So we keep busy here. But we have a really amazing crew of teachers here and faculty and support staff. And it's just really a joyful place to come to work every day.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in, Dr. Newell mentioned this idea of constructing knowledge through experiences. And one of the big focuses in this school is providing rich, often outdoor experiences, which then allows that foundation for constructing that knowledge. So one of, part of our vision as a school is to get these kids outdoor, place-based learning theories in places around their communities, around Utah, around the region, to really build those rich experiences. And that's what Dr. Newell really leads, that branch of what we do here.
Yeah, that's great. In our conversations, you were saying that even grade levels kind of have their own areas of emphasis or their exciting experiences that they look forward to. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, let's just get into then, Joey, your experience. So where did this idea to take your students birding come from?
Yeah, I have to go back a little ways. My first teaching position, I'm from Wyoming, and my first teaching position was in a place called Sheridan County District Number 1, and we were a small rural community, 4-day school week, right? So we didn't have anything on Fridays, no kids, no PD, no school. And they had a long history of using that Friday to provide opportunities for students to do. These are kind of outside of school because it's not a school day, but it's kind of sponsored through the school. We would take kids on these field experiences. And, as a young teacher, and I've always kind of been an outdoor person, I was like, I got to be a part of this, and I went on these trips and I learned from these very veteran outdoor educators. And it just, that was the launching point that just made me know this is something I find powerful, and not just for some kids, but for all kids. And the times when you'd see a kid who just struggled in school, right, in all the normal behavior, academic ways, but you'd see them in the field and they'd amaze you at their competency and their ability and their joy, right? And that was just a magical thing for me. And so when I came here to Logan and got involved in Edith Bowen Laboratory School, it's not a coincidence that I was connected with this school, considering their mission and vision. And so when I got here, and between Eric Newell and our director, that's the mission of this school, right? So I felt very supported in continuing these kind of practices with my students, and encouraged to do so, given a lot of autonomy in my planning of these experiences, with a lot of guidance and support and all that, but a lot of autonomy also. And so jumped into the fray pretty early. And how this gets to birds is because I started really thinking about fish. Right? We took the kids ice fishing, and we have a local fish hatchery I have good connections with. And we did a variety of things, really trying to focus on fish. And it was great. We had some magical experiences, except what I quickly realized is you have to do some very specific activities to encounter fish, right? You got to go fishing or aquarium or a hatchery or something. And I got to thinking about this. What could I do that's always, right? It's not just when I go fishing. And I don't know how it clicked. I don't remember what that was, but I was like, birds. Birds are everywhere. You wake up and hear birds. You walk in your backyard. You see them in the car. You go on vacation to other places in the world, and they're everywhere. And you can't avoid birds. They're life. They're beautiful. They're fascinating. And it was this might be a very special avenue. So I reached out to the local Bridgerland Audubon Society with some really great people there. And they were Jack Green and Hillary Shugart. I met with them in the summer, and I said, what would this look like? How, if I just want to try this, what could we do? And we threw around ideas and had ideas of doing a bird of the week study and writing little things and going in the field. And I jumped in, and it was with their support that I felt like I could jump into that and try it. But then also, after getting out in the field that first year a couple times, we in all these field experiences, right? One of the centers or an activity on this experience would be looking for some of the birds we found, or being aware of that type of life. Well, there was an obvious shortfall, which is how do you see? Birds are hard to see, right? They're sometimes easy to see, but sometimes hard. They're small, they're flickering, they fly away quickly when you see them. And so, this idea of getting binoculars kind of came to the fore that first year as a real need. I became aware of this UCORE grant opportunity.
Binoculars.
Exactly. And, wrote this grant to UCORE, and there were three major components of the grant. Yes, as you can see here, I'll show you. like it was this, oddly, this case is amazingly useful. It's not a normal binocular case. What it does is it's actually a chest harness. So the way it works is it goes here, and then these will strap kind of behind me and strap. So they're right in front of you. Your hands free, so the kids can participate in activities. They go in the field and they'll have these on their chest for 4 hours, but it doesn't cause any issues. In fact, it benefits them because they can keep their pencil in this little pocket. They have it. So this harness, inside this harness, we have these binoculars, which I keep them all. Let me show you really quick, just my little classroom setup. So I keep them all in these things. You see all my little binocular storages here. And these are high quality. They're Vortex, real high quality binoculars, about $100 a pair. And this was essential to me because, well, you guys are outdoor people, right? If you've ever tried looking through a pair of plastic kid binoculars that people say you should try those, you quickly realize binoculars are useless because they're so horrible. So it's like, if we're going to do this, we want to get some decent binos. And those make all the difference. And then the last you see are these little bird guides that slip in here. So when they're in the field, they have their case, their bird guides, and their binos. And they don't know how to use them right off the bat. It takes these are 7 and 8 year olds. It takes some real training, some real work. But throughout the year and throughout some of our progression of activities, they just become kind of like second nature to them, and to see them use them and utilize them to make discoveries has been really powerful piece of the greater Utah bird kind of curriculum that we're working on.
And then Joey's done an amazing job just training the kids. Here's how to use them. Like when they're out in the field, it's not, the first thought people probably have if you handed a class full of second graders binoculars that you're just going to lose their attention. But it's just like setting those expectations, training them on those expectations, using them, out the windows here from the classroom, on our school grounds, and then when they go out in the field, on a real field program, not those aren't real, but on a, one that's up in the canyon or something. They're familiar with that equipment. It's not a novelty. They're not playing around with the binoculars. They're so excited. It's a tool they have to make observations, and it's really remarkable.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know, Joey, you were saying what a difference it makes to have a supportive admin team. So Eric, can you tell us a little bit more about the role of the mission and vision of the school, which Joey referred to as well? How does that help empower teachers to bring these kinds of ideas into their classrooms?
Yeah, so as we talked about, our school is based on this constructivist philosophy. We've had field programs here for a long time. Our school has been taking 5th graders. We've had a partnership with Teton Science School since 1990. It's something we've been able to keep alive. When Steve Archibald, who was a teacher here initially, started taking students up there, there were probably 3 or 4 other schools here in Cache Valley that also took 5th graders up to Teton Science School. And over the years, those other schools have dropped those programs, unfortunately. And we've been able to keep that alive. I've been here in my role for 10 years. I taught in Logan District for 17 years, taught 5th grade, and then taught at Mount Logan Middle School, 6th grade there for 12 years. I went there to try it for a year, and I stayed there 12. I loved it. But as a classroom teacher, and I do have, I'll back up a little bit, a unique admin role, because I still am out with students, probably 120 days of the year. So I kind of, I don't know, I'm in an in-between space, I guess. And I love that I get to work directly with kids every day, almost every day I'm out. And also with teachers to develop curriculum. And, I like to just give whatever level of support that they need, and give them the chance to have autonomy. I remember when I was hired at Mount Logan Middle School, and Dan Johnson, who was the principal there and then became the principal here at Edith Bowen. And I asked him one time, I said, I was on a hiring committee. I said, how do you find such good people? And he said, you hire good people, you give them the tools that they need to do their job, the tools and training. And in his words, he said, and you get the hell out of their way and you let them do it. And I think that's been a really great administrative philosophy. that our school really embraces in terms of, we trust our teachers. We know that they're here to give the kids the very best that they can every single day. And we know that they're, looking always for ways to connect, to make curriculum come to life and give it purpose. And I think that's a key role of field programs, is I always say it makes the curriculum a means rather than an end. If you're just teaching math, going through Go Math or whatever program your schools use, if the numbers that are on the board don't have any meaning to the kids, they're going to sit there and they're going to say, why do I have to do this? What is this? How does this matter to me? And if you come in here and watch Joey doing math, it's all on bird counts, and the numbers that the kids are working with, they're real numbers that, data that they've collected that they're bringing in here into the classroom. And so that's what, I love so much about this birding program, is that it gives the curriculum across all subjects purpose. You should see the artwork that they're doing and the science, that this pulls into, and it's all, it's stuff that Joey's just been able to fill such a great void in our younger grades. We, before he came to the school, our second grade would go on field programs, but they didn't have consistent field programs. And so we were really excited when Joey wanted to be part of Edith Bowen, because this, he's exactly what we needed, and kind of this anchor for our younger grades in terms of building these programs. And we have other, strong teachers in, our first and second grade now as well, doing those same kinds of things. But the collaboration that we see is really remarkable. When I taught fifth grade at Ellis Elementary, I would, same thing, trying to figure out, like, what can I do to make this relevant? And we had a fire up in the foothills here, and that was an easy connection to my science curriculum at the time. And so I had all my curriculum was around, wildfire and taking kids up to the foothills. We did 3 times a year. I partnered with a professor here on campus that taught environmental education, and said, hey, this, I'd love to get my 5th graders up there. Here's my curriculum. Would it interest you to have your environmental education students teach my 5th graders up here? And so when Joey, came up with this whole birding thing, it's just such a really great fit. As Joey said, there's birds anywhere you look. And the kids are so excited, and I love it when I come back from a weekend. I'll stick my head in
He
the
always
air,
pops in.
and out with 5th graders somewhere, and I'll say, we saw a bald eagle today.
Yeah.
And it's fun for me as well, because I work with all the grades at our school. But now that these kids that had, Joey part of this birding program several years ago, now when we're, up at Teton Science School, these kids are all birders.
Yeah.
And it also teaches them such great observational skills that transfer and carry from grade to grade. So
I love that. And I want to just expand on that a little bit. Joey, you shared with me a little of how these kids become birders, and how it just kind of becomes infused into their lives. Can you expand on that a little for us?
Yeah, I should say, I've been asked by many people about this. They go, like, what if a kid doesn't like birds, right? Like, it would be hard to be in your class if you don't like birds. But I just want people to know, I teach 2nd grade, and I'm just fortunate because when you teach, I would say anything 9 and under, if you love it and are passionate and it's your heart, they are the same. I do think it would be a different challenge doing something like this in older grades with that. Like, what if they don't want to do it? But with the young kids, they are heart and soul love it. Every one of them. I've never had a kid who doesn't go all in about it. And when I say all in, I mean some of the most, and this is how, back to your question, Karen, what I've seen, probably the single thing of anything, scores, use of binoculars, awareness, identification, complex thinking, like of all that, the thing that I've seen that makes me know there's something powerful about this is that I've never had students connecting learning and the things they do at school with the real world and their life and their family and their community and nature outside of school. Even like, it hasn't even touched what I'm seeing now. I every week I get emails from parents saying, oh, Jackson took our family on a birding outing up the canyon and showed us this new trail. Or we went to Firefly Park and she was showing me all about the great horned owl nest. Or for vacation, they made us go to the Tracy Aviary. Or we went to check out books from the public library on birds. I mean, I'm getting those emails every single week, that kind of thing. And I'm like, I've never had anything like that before. And not to mention, like, I have a Google sheet, Google form, a simple QR code that families have. And if they see pictures, like anywhere at home, whatever, they do the QR code, they upload the picture, they put their name and put where they saw it. And then in class, we pull that up at the end of every day and look at new sightings from the kids out in the world. And I think I have like over 600 of those already this year. I mean, to think that kids and families, and this is not just like a couple kids, every kid is represented there, you know, over 600 like instances of wanting to be connected to school through a content thing. And that's just that. It's kind of like something
the good kind of homework.
Yeah, like something powerful there, you know.
And it builds this community where your families feel like they're part of what their students experiencing and part of your school. And Eric, you spoke to when we visited about the importance of having experiences like that make a school of choice a place where parents will choose to bring their kids and how it will impact enrollment. So from an administrative point of view, how have you seen these kinds of experiences impact enrollment at your school, which is something a lot of schools are worried about?
Yeah, so when I was at Mount Logan Middle School, programs I developed there, we had significant number of families were school choicing into Logan City School District from Cache to be part of those outdoor programs we had built. And they were, again, infused in the school day with curriculum. And then we see that here at Edith Bowen. We survey our families every year. And one of the questions is, why do you choose to bring your kids here? It's kind of a pain. We don't have any busing, so parents have to be able to bring their kids here. They have to be able to ride public transit here for us. And also, traffic on campus is horrendous. Carpool is not for the faint of heart here. So the number one reason that people indicate that they're bringing, by far and away, the number one reason is for these experiential learning opportunities that we offer. And we could, based on just what we're turning away from our kindergarten enrollment every year, we could open 4 more schools and fill them. And because parents want their kids to have real experiences, and I think something that often gets lost in these educational conversations is also joy really matters, right? Who doesn't want their kid to be happy when they're at school and to be engaged and to be thinking about, oh, you know, I just saw this bird and I'm going to upload this so we can talk about it in class. It builds community. These programs build community. They build relationships both with peers, but also students to teachers, builds trust, builds kids' confidence, and all of those things spill over into academics. So.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. And it's so interesting within the world of education, some of the things that we're really concerned about: absenteeism, family engagement. When you have a program where kids want to go to school and parents want and know how much their kids are loving school, you don't run into those problems as much. So it's really amazing.
Yeah. And I would add, just from the previous question too, like when you're out in the field with Joey, I mean, I love, like, if they see a robin, they think that they've just seen like an endangered, California condor down in the Grand Canyon. Like, his enthusiasm just carries, like, the kids. I just remember this group of kids were so excited to tell me that they just saw a robin and it was right there and they had their binoculars, and that enthusiasm also matters, right? It's contagious. And I love that anything that, you might think, oh, that's mundane, it's just a robin. We've seen thousands of robins in our lives, but Joey makes that like so, there's just excitement around it, that there's a robin right there. Did you see it? Dr. Newell, do you see the robin right there? And so
Love
I
it.
get excited about it too.
It's
Yeah,
just
but
not-
talk about you could, I mean, come on, why you could see why am I successful working here? I mean, if there's anything people could take away from this whole presentation, look at Dr. Newell said it, like, why don't make learning a joy? Like, focus on joy for the students. And I mean, come on, talk about the heart of what we should do, right? And easy to work for administrators that forefront that's what's important here, right?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It makes all the difference. So Joey, you've taken birding and these binoculars and expanded it. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but I'd love to hear more. You've expanded it into other subjects within your school or within your class. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you've taken birding and infused it into other subjects?
Yeah. So this will be a bit nitty gritty stuff, but I think educators here specifically will find this an important piece because, right, one of the things we as teachers have to do is we have to be able to justify what we're doing from this academic Utah state standards lens, right? As much as we want the joy, if you can't tell your admin and the district and stakeholders and legislators, we do joy here at school. No, right? We teach educational standards, and I'm not just saying that. I mean, we do incredibly intentionally. And so I'll dig into that piece of it now and just know it could get a little nitty-gritty, but hopefully not. So those first 2 years, I jumped into this. These were experimental years, building up what works. How do I incorporate the learning, the field experiences with classroom work, and the birding with classroom reading and math and social studies and trying stuff out in science. But it wasn't until this last summer that I got a grant from the local Bridgeland Audubon Society, really, that funded real development of the resources. Like, hundreds of hours needed to go into making the actual resources and making sure each was explicitly aligned to my scope and sequence. So when I use these resources, I can say, I'm exhaustively covering my academic Utah state standards. Here's alignment documents to show it. Here is how I'm doing it. And I'm doing it really well, embedded in this integrated, joyful learning about birds. And so really what I like to say is it starts from one thing, which is the idea of a bird of the week. So we have one Utah bird of the week. Last week it was the sandhill crane. Okay. And think of a front and a back page. Actually, let me screen share and I'll show you a kid version of what that, let me see if you guys, are you seeing my screen here? Okay. So sorry, not a great picture because I took it out of one of their folders, but you can kind of see this is one side of the Sandhill Crane literature page. And what this shows is all the informational text. And I wrote these, one for each bird, and it shows some pictures, has some text features, shows some identification, diet, and habitat. And so we use this as our reading material to learn about informational text, and we annotate and we work on our targets and we reread it and build our fluency. And then on the back side, you'll see this is the same page, but on the back, I'll write a little literature story, usually kind of like a little fable about sandhill cranes, where they're characters like Sarah, and they migrate to Mexico. And, sandhill cranes really do migrate to Mexico. And it's kind of about their journey, and they're talking about things. So a couple things to notice when I write those is, A, we use this to work on our literature standards because we have separate informational text and literature reading standards. So we use that. Second off to notice, I usually make the theme and the fable about one of our social studies standards. So I think this had to do with why people in different parts of the world act or have different cultures. And so if you were to read this, it's kind of like, well, when they're in Canada on their migration, everybody's bundled up and like that. And then when they're in Mexico, everybody's like in swim trunks and no, clothes as they're looking down at people from the sky. And it's like, well, yeah, people wear different clothing and have different traditions because of the weather, right? It's cold in some places, warm, things like that. So we really hit on those social studies standards through this kind of fable lens. But you'll also notice down here, some of our comprehension work the kids do is all targeted towards our literature standards, and then we work on all our phonics skills. So you can think of those, one of these each week for the whole year. So there's 37 of these. So you could imagine how long that took to make 37 of those and align them all to our literature standards. And then to go along with those, we have a math page for each bird, which I actually don't have a picture to pull up right now, but basically it's an integrated word problem that's very in depth. And this math problem of the week is kind of goes each day of our math class. And it doesn't take all of math class, but it takes about 20 minutes per day of math to kind of extend the word problem. And the word problem is always centered around the bird. I think for this sandhill crane, it was like, well, the first leg of the migration was 257 miles. The second leg was 340 miles. The third leg was, right? So what was the total migration distance or something like that? So you can see how within the context of the bird, we hit some of those math targets. And then one of the big pieces that's been, this has been a huge piece of this. So after they study a bird all week, they make these bird cards, these little summative bird cards. So after the dark-eyed junco week, you can see a kid made this. They know the sounds of the birds. We study all the sounds, and they kind of keep track of a fact about it. He did this sketch, which they build. We have integrated art with this. And then importantly, you see this little like round badge here? That's a dark-eyed junco. That's the bird. And they only get that badge. Often this is a blank circle. They only get that badge if we see that bird and take the picture like as a class on one of our field experiences. So this bird has been captured, with the badge. And then on the backside, they journal kind of that experience. So this was on November 8th. By the EVLS mud dig tree. You can imagine what they think of that. And we peeked. We saw a junco in a tree. Chip, chip, chip. They're just free writing, right? This isn't something I've structured. The hopping around the ground, jumping up and down, chipping the seeds around. It's a dark-eyed junco, Dr. Koz. We race outside to the juncos. He took a burst. It's a dark-eyed junco, the end. So, we're trying to capture these birds that we find in real life and document them in these journals. One of the last things I'll point out in terms of writing is additionally with this journal, I'm not sure we've talked about how my field experiences are structured, but every Friday, the very first thing we do is my first year I've committed to this. We leave our classroom right at about 8. We get here at 8:15 and we're out the door at 8:45. And we do what I call a learning journey, which is a field experience just based from walking. We don't need a bus. I don't need a lot of chaperones. We do it right from my door. We get on the binos, we head out. Luckily for us, about 300 yards away, we have a beautiful Logan City Cemetery. And talk about
full of mature trees. It's kind
big sycamores and evergreens, and talk about an overlooked wildlife area. The amount of birds and wildlife and natural presence of things in the cemetery is amazing. So we go to the cemetery every week on Friday. We are aware, we ask questions, we observe, we look, and I'm taking pictures the whole time. And when we get back from that, it only lasts about an hour. When we get back, we look through all the pictures. We decide on a picture that kind of caught a memorable moment. I print it on one of these badges, and then the kids journal about that experience. And so they have this ongoing field journal of every Friday this year and every experience in the cemetery, whether it's hot, cold, snowy. And it's so been fun. Here, I wanted to read, here was a couple weeks ago on the 30th. You see that cool, we actually got that picture. It's a red-breasted nuthatch, which is a really cool little bird. You even see it has a seed in its mouth. So here's what the kid journaled after. I thought this was amazing for a second grade. I'm on a tree that's very tall. I, a nuthatch, will not fall. Some humans came along and said, that bird's belly is tannish red. Then I found a little seed. Next, I hid it with my greed. Now I fly onto a twig. They won't see me. I'm not big. Now I get some quietness. I am out of that big mess. I mean, that's pretty fun for a 7-year-old, isn't it? No guidance, nothing. Like, from the point of view of the bird, you know, and to have all those, you could even hear like the syllabic count of those phrases all align. I mean, I told him he could be the next Dr. Seuss, you know, but so it's been fun too, as a form of assessment, right? To look at their journal entries from the first week of the year and now seeing their development in their writing skills and creativity and awareness and language and handwriting has been pretty special. So those are some big pieces of this curriculum. And
I love how they hyphenated the Y, you know, instead of
that's
the
very
dash there.
when they could, the
Right, the
Y
Y
would have
could have
taken up
fit there.
less space than the dash.
Oh, right.
So that's yeah. Thanks for letting me show a little bit of that, but yeah, really work hard to align everything now pretty intentionally with our Utah standards. So,
And I think, you know, along those lines too, we talked about, I told the story to our faculty a couple years ago. There was a math professor here in the LED program, Jim Barta, and he spent a lot of his career, he moved down to the Blanding campus and focusing on indigenous ways of knowing and learning math. And I was down at a conference down there at the Blanding campus and saw Jim Barta, who I hadn't seen for a long time, and, you know, hey, how are you? And we were talking, and he told me this story of how he was at a meeting with the Navajo elders down there, and he was asking them about why is there a learning gap with math with these students, with the indigenous students down there. And he said, so I asked one of these elders, you know, why do you think there's this gap? Why is there an achievement gap? And he said, Eric, he looked at me and he said, Jim, it's because the numbers don't dance. And Jim said, my first thought was to say, what do you mean the numbers don't dance? But I knew if I asked him that, he was just going to say, well, what do you think it means, Jim? So he said, I've thought about that for years. And he said, what I think it means is if I was an elementary school teacher, I wouldn't put a number on the board unless there was a story behind that number. And so that's what this birding curriculum is allowed Joey to do, is the numbers dance with the math. Everything that they're doing has a purpose, and it's all connected to this, you know, larger goal. People always think of field programs with the science curriculum, and we do a lot of science out on the field, but as Joey was demonstrating there too, like you can justify any destination with the language arts curriculum. And when I was at Mount Logan Middle School, all of my writing instruction, the meat of my writing instruction happened outdoors on field programs. And it's amazing the kinds of things kids will write. It just blows your mind. And I always tell students, like, my favorite part is when you share your writing with me at the end of the day. And I can't tell you how many times unscripted kids write about, I've never been this relaxed before. I've never been this calm. I've never been this, you know, at peace before or we just have them to First Dam, right up here, the mouth of Logan Canyon. And kids will say, like, what's this place called? Like, can I bring my family here? Like, you know, there's a lot of kids that haven't just been to these basic places that we take for granted and assume everyone knows about. And it's really amazing to see, you know, kids going to these places and then, you know, wanting to bring their families back. So all our, you know, the field programs, it's easy to connect it. You could dump Joey or I in a blank random field somewhere. We could find a way to connect that to the curriculum. Once you start to think that way, you get better and better at it and more confident, you know, with how you could do that and how you can make the curriculum come to life through those experiences. So.
Yeah, when he was talking, it kind of made me think, you know, we've always tried to, how do we get, you know, bigger scale political, like how do we get parents and families to take their kids and like expose their kids to nature and get their kids involved. It's like, maybe we should be getting the kids, like it seems powerful, the kids taking their families. Like
Right.
I've been
Works the
here,
other
I know
way.
kind of what to do. And I've seen
Yeah.
some of that really happening where it's like the kid is the ambassador for these outdoor experiences, you know, in that other direction, which is kind of, yeah, not, I don't typically think of it like that, you know?
Yeah, and they're powerful, you know, and what they want and what they're excited about. It's hard for it to not just be addictive for the family too. You know, they just love it. Oh, that's fantastic. So let's say hypothetically that I'm a teacher at a school that doesn't have a program like this. What's the best way for me to approach my administrator and say, please, I want to get this started. How can I get the support of my administrator?
That's a great question. I teach LED 1010 course, Intro to Elementary Education adjunct every year. And on my evaluations at the end of my class, I talk a lot about what we do here at Edith Bowen. And one of the common themes that comes up from my students is they say, you know, that's not realistic. We can't do those things. And what I, learned front load now with my classes in that is to say, first off, that we aren't doing anything here that anyone in any other public school couldn't do. Like all the things we're doing here at Edith Bowen are things that I also did when I taught at Ellis Elementary and when I taught at Mount Logan Middle School. But it takes drive, and also different schools are under different restrictions and different parameters. So if your school says you can do one field program per year, and we've also shifted here, we love to use the term field experience instead of field trip, just to differentiate that. I think of a field trip as like, I remember the first field trip I did when I taught 5th grade, and we went down to the Capitol in Salt Lake and packed the bus full of 3 classes of 5th graders, had 90 kids on this bus, went home with a horrible headache. The kids went home like it was fun. We didn't learn anything. And there were learning goals, but right, it's just crowd management all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we're trying to do with our field experiences is we're going to destinations where there isn't a program. We're going up to the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. Most of the places we go are 10 minutes from our school. We're going to King Nature Park, or to the cemetery here, or out to Cutler Marsh.
Marina,
yeah. So it's close, but I always would say, work within the parameters that you have. If you can only do one field program per year, invite your administrator on it and say, hey, I want you to come see what we're doing in here, and make sure that you're connecting it to the curriculum. When I was first doing those wildfire field programs when I taught 5th grade, there was a curriculum director and my principal both, I felt like they were really skeptical of what I was doing. And so I typed up it was like a 9 or 10 page document of, the math curriculum, social studies, science, language arts curriculum, art curriculum, like all of the standards that I was meeting through this and how I was doing it. And one day that curriculum director came into my room and said, hey, like these, foothills things you're doing, what does that even have to do with your curriculum? Like wildfire isn't in your curriculum. And I just turned to my filing cabinet. This was before email was kind of new then. That'll date me here. But I pulled this document and I said, here you go. This is what I'm doing. And here's how I'm teaching the curriculum through it. So making sure that you're teaching the curriculum, connecting the standards to the experience, across curricular, boundaries. And then the second thing would be invite your administrators. Let them come especially see kids that struggle in a traditional classroom tend to thrive in those settings. And also the kids that, whose parents are begging for a gifted and talented program. Those kids also have opportunities it's good for all kids. And we know, the research out there and the science is so good on being outside is good for your mental health, your physical health. It's good for it's so many different things. There's so much research as well on long-term retention for kids that learn things on field programs as opposed to just sitting at a desk. So connecting those experiences to the curriculum, invite your administrators out. And then the other thing I'd always say is educational research is your friend. So when I was developing programs at Mount Logan Middle School, I got to get a little drink here. battling a cold still. But our district had us do all of this training on the Carnegie Foundation's recommendations for teaching adolescent literacy. So we used that in the proposals that we wrote for field programs. Is, hey, we just did this training for adolescent literacy, and here's how we want to put that into practice.
Okay.
And I want to add in two pieces to that. To any, one is the first think, if you want to jump into this, think close by. It's been something I've been thinking a lot more about lately. It's like, I look at schools, I drive to different places and see different schools, and I'm like, oh, they're a block from this big city park, or and the city park has a creek running through it, or there's that giant open grassland area right near them, or they're near this. And it's like, start there. I mean, if you're able to take, some people on their school grounds have trees and have some like kind of grassy areas. Start dipping your toes in those kind of things, because I'll tell you, they can be just as powerful to a park that's 1 block away. You can create a field experience at that park that's just as powerful as if you need to get bus transportation and 50 chaperones and your admin involved with you and, multiple grades, right? Sometimes less and simpler is actually better, and you can really build a habit and routine of learning and teaching outdoors through those types of ways. But I also want to kind of make a little plug here, Karen, for people listening. If you're really interested, if say like I'm an educator and I want to continue growing and learning how to do outdoor education better and developing skills, Eric and I, there's a big the Eccles Foundation just got a big grant, and it's called Statewide Learning Teams. And me and Eric are kind of facilitating an outdoor education team, and it's made up of educators from all over the state who are interested in, I mean, we're interested too. We're not like in charge, like teaching it. It's like a group of teachers wanting to get better at outdoor ed. So if those kind of questions on how do I improve it, and how do I make a field experience run smooth, and how do I figure out logistics, if that's interesting to you and you want to kind of think about this team with us and work with us together, you could always just put your email in a chat, maybe, Karen, and we could collect those, and we'll just reach out to you with more details, because this is just starting. We have funding to pay for teachers to come on field outings. In fact, we're taking our first group of teachers out on March 4th. In the field, just teachers, to say, how would we teach kids in this space if you were to bring your kids here? So yeah, if that's something for any participants here interested.
Absolutely. Please. And I'd love to highlight that on our website and in my newsletter as well. We'll
that would be it. Yeah.
And I think that even too with that, like once you've designed an experience and you have your administrator there, then when you go back the next year and say, hey, if I could do 2 field programs, this is how I could teach this curriculum, and here's how I could do it better if we could go outside to do it. And I also think a lot of it is about budget priorities. I remember at Ellis one time being told we didn't have, it was $90 then for a bus to go to the Bonneville Shoreline Trail and want to take kids up there. So we don't have the money for that. But the school had just spent like $32,000 on a mobile iPad lab, right? And so I know when we take kids out that those are like anchor experiences that they'll remember the rest of their lives. And they're not going to remember the iPad experience that they had. And I understand that I'm also the technology director here at Edith Bowen, kind of two opposite worlds, but their technology has a role and a purpose. But we tend to use it as a time filler in education oftentimes. And so we try to, a goal here at Edith Bowen is not to do that. If we have kids on a device, it's for a very intentional, specific purpose. It's not, oh, you finished your work early, go get on your Chromebook. And so I think a big part of that's just, how do you prioritize your budgets? And as an administrator as well, if someone comes to me and I don't, rather than say no, I would say, well, like when Joey first wanted to ice fish, there's a lot of concerns about that, getting kids out on ice. But so I said, look, well, here's my concerns. How are we going to make sure that they're safe? We're having all the kids talk to me more. And so I think rather than, for administrators out there, rather than just saying, no, we can't, I always say, these are the concerns. Can we work through those? What are the solutions we can come up with? And as a teacher from that side of it, when I would go to administrators at Mount Logan Middle School or Ellis and they'd say no, I would say, why not? Help me understand this. And then I would think and scheme, and maybe I'd go back a week later, maybe it was 2 years later sometimes, and say, hey, remember we had this conversation about getting kids out in canoes, and these were your concerns. Well, what if we did it this way? Would that work? And I always go back, would go back with a smile on my face. I call it being a happy warrior, right? Rather than getting angry with the no's, just like finding out why, doing my homework, laying the groundwork, and then going back and, hey, what about this? And again, I would always invite administrators and let them see these kids come alive and let the administrators have those opportunities to build relationships with maybe the kid that's always, the problem child in the office. And all of a sudden they see them light up and they're writing amazing poetry in their journal, or they're, asking amazing questions. And so I think just being consistent and making sure you're providing good instruction and then slowly expand those parameters. Yeah.
That's excellent advice. Thank you. I love happy warrior. I'm going to need to put that on a t-shirt. Like, hey, I'm here. I want to know why respectfully, but please help me understand. I love that. So I know we're getting close to the end of our time. Joey, how has teaching in this way, bringing in birding and exploring kind of your creativity, how has that helped you enjoy your job?
I mean, I'll always enjoy my job. I have a special bond with kids, and kids bring me joy, and I can't help but that. But I'll tell you what, when you come to work every day and you're allowed to bring your passion into your work, and you're recognized and praised and congratulated for, I guess, making your dreams come true, like your own dreams of what education can be, right? I mean, how can that not make you love your job? You feel valued, you feel like your passions come alive, and you feel like what you value in education is something that's supported by those around you and in your class.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the difference, right, between trusting a teacher as a professional and treating them like a script reader. That's the difference. That's why we get into teaching, right? Is to be that professional and bring that joy to our students. Okay, were there any other things that we didn't get to cover that you would love to add?
I was just thinking about Thomas Friedman, and I think it's in his book, The World is Flat, talks about that equation. He says CQ, curiosity quotient, plus PQ, passion quotient, is greater than IQ. And I think that really kind of captures what we've talked about today is, this birding experience that Joey's doing in here, it captivates kids' curiosity, and the passion Joey has is contagious. That carries over to passion for the kids. And that drives their learning in ways that are, really oftentimes hard to measure. But, we take the same standardized tests as every other school in the state. And I know there's so many factors that go into those, but our students do exceptional on those tests. And that's, I think, in part because that isn't per se our goal. Our goal is to provide good instruction every day and to connect with those little humans that are under our care. And when you do that, that academic part is solid. It takes care of itself. So.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Joey, any other thoughts you'd like to add?
I don't think so. Just if anybody has any questions, I know we have a couple minutes here. We'd love to hear anybody's thoughts.
Excellent. Well, yeah, let's see. So yeah, our guests, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them into the chat or the Q&A. We'd love to address those.
Maybe while people are thinking, I had just a question for you both. Thanks for all of this information. This has been so great. And as someone who administered this grant 3 years ago, it's just amazing to see it progress and to evolve as much as it has. What is like one thing that you dream about doing one day that maybe hasn't happened yet? What would be the next step in this evolution of the beyond? We've talked about birds and binoculars.
I already know mine.
Ooh.
Yeah. Next step. This is an end goal step, but I definitely have a next step. So I got to just try to find the funding for this one. Right? Like my whole year is classroom applied in the field. But what I want to do next is get the funding to support my class a week in the summer, right? That first week in June or the second week in June, where it's fully field based. And we have one night even, maybe we could base it out of the school, but most like start at the school, but then going out from here in buses, but then spend 2 nights, one night up in the mountains camping with them, actually camped out there. So we'd have 2 full days, wake up in the morning, have the whole day, camp, whole next morning. And so it's like this fully applied experience of we spent all year studying. Now, what does the real world bring us when we're just immersed, rather than a 1-2 hour field experience? So, and thinking what their journals would look like after that experience. And, right. So that's kind of something I'm going to be working on next, making that happen.
Then I guess a big thing I've been working on isn't a specific destination, but transportation is always a challenge. And I've been working hard took 9 years. We were finally able to buy a minibus that will seat 15 people. And then we found out from risk management that we can't use it anymore because it doesn't meet the federal standards. So we had to sell our minibus, and it was a crushing blow. But I've been working on, we just bought a school bus, which was no small task to get through all those hoops to be able to buy that. And now we're just working on like being compliant with all the state regulations. And then also we're working on putting out a position for a driver for that. And I'm working on getting my CDL with the passenger endorsement. So if we don't have the driver, that I can drive the bus. And so part of it is just like, there's always also, I love that Randy Posh in his book, The Last Lecture, he talks about brick walls in life. You're just there to find out how bad you want something. I've been told no countless times in my career. And so I just think, okay, this is a brick wall. How bad do I want this? And what does it take? How are we going to solve this problem? So anyway, so that's what I've been working on. I'm closing in on that one. So.
Oh, I love it. Well, great. Well, I think we have wrapped up our time. I can't thank you enough, both of you, for sharing your experience, your advice, your passion for everything that you've done, and the success that it's brought to you and to your students. It's remarkable. Thank you again. And we'll make sure that any of our guests have access to the information you want to share.
I just saw Caroline said that the chat was turned off.
Oh,
let me just put my email in there really quick so everybody can see it. And if somebody was interested at all at connecting with me and Eric, and maybe thinking about wanting to be involved in that outdoor ed learning group we're working on, then they could just email me. So let me throw it in there. I hope everybody will be able to see this at usu.edu. Just send me an email and say, hey, outdoor ed learning team sounds great. And I can just quick fill you in on what that could look like. And it's a really small, intimate group. So I think we'd really form a close bond and get to do a lot together outdoors.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. This will not be the last time I ask for you to share your wisdom, for sure. Well, take care. Have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys.